Hi everyone, welcome to Connect Group this week. We're going to continue talking about what Jesus said. And this week I spoke about what Jesus said about waiting. And the verse that I rooted everything in was Acts 1 verse 4, which said, "On one occasion, while he was eating with them, he gave them this command: do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my Father promised, which you have heard me speak about." Now, this is the one area in the Bible where we actually hear Jesus talk about or say the word wait. And how many of you know that sometimes it's not only what people say, but what people do is where we learn from them? So I've taken this verse and I've actually gone and used it as an example of not only what Jesus said, but I've looked at also what he did in waiting. And I've looked through the history of the Bible, because when Jesus says this, he's actually following a pattern that you see throughout the Bible, where normally there's a waiting period before there's something new, before there's change. And so we're going to look at that today. So just to give you a recap on the message this week, I spoke about three things that are reasons why we wait. Now, there are so many different reasons that we could talk about, but I focused on three reasons why we wait, and then three things that we can do while we wait. So the first reason I talked about was we wait because we need to change. A lot of times there's something actually in our heart, in our attitude, something that needs to change before God can take us into the next step. You know, those disciples, when they went into that upper room, they waited for 10 days. And in those 10 days, there were many things that had to change. They had to talk about the emotions that they had just gone through, everything they had seen and experienced that Jesus had gone through, and then he had left them and he told them to wait. They also made decisions up in that room. They chose a new disciple to replace Judas. And there are other different examples throughout the Old Testament and New Testament that we can see what happens in the waiting before the next step. Sometimes it's a practical thing. Sometimes it is a heart matter, and maybe it's sin that actually needs to be taken care of before you can move to the next step. So that first thing that happens why we wait, or the reason why we wait, is possibly change needs to take place. The second thing or the second reason why I spoke that we need to wait is to get us to a point to where we learn to trust God patiently. Waiting is the confident, disciplined, expectant, active, and sometimes painful clinging to God, knowing he will answer us at the proper time. Are we truly trusting patiently in God, or do we feel like we need to actually help him to get the answer? Are we actually waiting on his perfect timing, or are we helping him along? And I use examples from Genesis 16 to 17 about Abraham and Sarah. So I encourage you to read that story of how they tried to help God along the way when he had given them a promise that they needed to wait on. The third thing that I said, the reason why we need to wait, is so that God can get the glory in the final, when the answer comes. There are some things that only God can do. And while we wait patiently for him, while we go through those changes, when the answer comes, that's when God gets the glory. Even Jesus waited to raise Lazarus from the dead, and he clearly said in John 11:4, "This illness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." So God wants to get the glory in the end. Those are some of the reasons why we wait. And then I talked about, what do we do in the waiting? There are three things that we can do, and the most important thing I really feel is put your hope in God. Put your hope in the God who's in control and who has the answers for you. When you focus and you put your hope in the answer instead of in the God who can bring the answer, and God who can bring the answer, you're going to get disappointed. So are you focusing and putting your hope in the answer, or are you putting your hope in the one who brings the answer? Put your hope in God. The second thing that we can do while we wait is do it in community. Jesus didn't tell one disciple to go and wait. He told them to wait. They waited in community. We need to be able to share our doubts, the things that we're going through while we're waiting with other people. He's created us to be in community. That's why Connect Group is so important. Wait in community. The third and last thing that we can do while we wait is to actually wait expectantly. Don't wait passively. Expect that God is going to answer you. He is a God who answers prayer, and He will answer in the proper and the most perfect time for you. Wait expectantly on Him. Don't give up. Put your hope in Him. He's a God who answers prayer. So as you're talking in your groups this week, go ahead and ask questions, like where does change need to take place, possibly for you to go to that next step. I talk about, where are you putting your trust? Are you trying to help God to answer your question before He's ready to? Are you, is there a place where God has answered a question for you and answered a promise and where He's got glory? Give testimony about that. Share in your group where God has been given the glory. Give glory to Him in that answered prayer. And, talk about the different things. Are you putting your hope in Him? Are you focusing on the problem? Talk about how group has been a blessing to you to be able to wait on those answers. And continue waiting expectantly. Have an amazing conversation this week. Enjoy Connect Group, and blessings to you. Bye.